We're going to unpack a story full of family drama, jealousy, and, well, some serious sibling rivalry. We're diving deep into the story of Joseph and his brothers.
Yeah, a story that's thousands of years old.
Thousands of years old.
But still feels so incredibly relevant.
Absolutely. We're looking specifically at Genesis 37, focusing on that early part of Joseph's journey. And one thing that always fascinates me about the story is that it's not just about Joseph, right? Like, it's deeply embedded in this whole family line going all the way back to Jacob and beyond. It really makes you think about the weight of family history. You know what I mean?
It does, yeah. And you can't underestimate the importance of setting either. I mean, Jacob lived in Canaan, the same land where his father Isaac and his grandfather Abraham had lived. So we're talking about a family with deep roots in this specific place, carrying the legacy of their ancestors.
It adds another layer to the story for sure. Okay, so we've got Jacob living in Canaan with his 12 sons. And let's be honest, right from the start, it's pretty clear that Joseph is the favorite. So I gotta ask, how common was this kind of blatant favoritism back then? I mean, was it just like a normal thing?
Well, remember that in ancient societies, the concept of primogeniture, where the firstborn son inherited everything, was pretty ingrained.
Right.
But in Jacob's case, he clearly favors Joseph, his second youngest son, over all the others. And the text even tells us that he makes Joseph this incredibly ornate robe, a visible symbol of his preference.
That robe, I mean, it really jumps out at you when you read that part, right? Like, it wasn't just a piece of clothing, it was a statement. It was like Jacob was broadcasting his favoritism to the whole world.
Totally.
I mean, can you imagine how his other sons must have felt?
It must have been incredibly frustrating, to say the least. I mean, imagine constantly being reminded that you're not the chosen one. Decke explicitly states that they hated Joseph and couldn't even speak kindly to him. That kind of resentment, it just festers.
Oh, yeah. Family dinners must have been super awkward.
Oh, absolutely. You can practically feel the tension. And then, of course, things get even worse when Joseph starts having these vivid, intense dreams, and he just can't help but share them.
Okay, yeah, those dreams were like a key turning point, right? They set everything else in motion. So, in his first dream, Joseph sees himself and his brothers binding sheaves of grain in the field. And get this, his sheaf rises up, and all his brothers' sheaves bow down to it. What do you make of that imagery?
Well, it's a pretty potent symbolism, isn't it? I mean, the sheaves representing their individual labors, all bowing down to Joseph's. You can see it as this dream about hierarchy and power, about Joseph being elevated above his brothers. And for young Joseph, who the text describes as a boy, I mean, imagine how exciting and maybe even confusing that would be, right?
I mean, he's probably just thinking, whoa, that was a cool dream. I gotta tell someone.
Exactly. You could picture him running to his brothers, all excited to share this incredible vision. But remember, his brothers already resent him deeply.
Oh, yeah. I don't think this dream went over very well.
Not at all. They see it as confirmation of their fears.
Yeah.
A sign that Joseph wants to rule over them. They ask him sarcastically, do you intend to reign over us? Will you actually rule us? I mean, their words are just dripping with bitterness and scorn.
Ouch. That's gotta hurt.
Yeah.
And then, to make matters worse, he has a second dream that really pushes them over the edge.
Right. This time, Joseph sees the sun, the moon, and 11 stars all bowing down to him. I mean, this dream takes the symbolism to a whole new level.
It's intense.
Even his father, Jacob, rebukes him for this one. He questions whether he and his mother would actually bow down to Joseph.
So even Jacob thinks it's a little much.
Yeah. But the text says he kept the matter in mind, like he's sensing there's something deeper going on here. It's almost like he understands the power of dreams in a way that the brothers don't.
I think you're right. Jacob, as the patriarch, he seems more attuned to the significance of these dreams. But, even if he recognizes it, that seed of resentment has already been planted among the brothers.
It has. And it's about to take root in a very, very dangerous way.
Because this is where things take a dark turn. The brothers are out tending their father's flocks near Shechem, and Jacob, concerned for their well-being, sends Joseph to check on them.
It's important to remember this wasn't just some random place.
Oh.
It was a place steeped in family history, both good and bad. I mean, this is where Jacob's father, Isaac, had dug wells symbolizing prosperity and blessing. But it's also where Jacob's daughter, Dinah, had been violated, leading to this whole cycle of violence and revenge. So this place is loaded with meaning, both for Jacob and his sons.
It's like the past is casting a shadow over everything, adding to the tension of the situation. Because when the brothers see Joseph coming, they immediately start plotting to kill him.
Yeah. It's chilling how quickly their resentment turns into this murderous intent. I mean, they're not seeing Joseph as their brother anymore. He's that dreamer, a threat to their place in the family.
Their plan is brutal. Kill him, throw his body into a cistern, and then tell their father that a wild animal got him. It's a plan born out of desperation and fueled by years of suppressed anger.
And, it really speaks to the power of jealousy, how it can just warp even the closest bonds. I mean, they're willing to sacrifice their own brother to protect themselves.
It's scary to think about. But thankfully, there's one brother, Reuben, who at least tries to intervene. He urges them not to shed Joseph's blood, but to throw him into a cistern unharmed. His plan is to come back later and rescue him.
Reuben's intervention is crucial here. It shows that even in this messed up family, there's still a flicker of conscience, some sense of right and wrong, a little glimmer of hope in this really dark situation.
But it's not enough to stop what happens next.
No, it's not. When Joseph arrives, they grab him, strip him of that precious robe, that symbol of their father's favoritism, and toss him into that empty cistern.
Wow. Can you imagine what must have been going through Joseph's mind at that moment, betrayed by his own brothers, trapped in the dark?
It's a powerful image of isolation and despair.
Totally. And to make matters worse, they come up with a new, even more messed up plan.
Right. So they're sitting down to eat, like everything's normal, when they spot a caravan of Ishmaelites passing by, heading down to Egypt. And that's when they get this chillingly pragmatic idea.
They decide to sell Joseph into slavery.
Yeah.
That's just heartbreaking. Their own brother bargained away like he's nothing.
It really reveals how far gone they are morally. They trade their brother's freedom for 20 shekels of silver.
I actually had to look this up. 20 shekels? That was the going rate for a slave back then.
Wow.
So they pull Joseph out of the cistern and hand him over to the Ishmaelites who take him down to Egypt. And poor Reuben, who had tried to save him, comes back to the cistern and finds it empty.
Can you imagine his anguish? He probably thought he had bought Joseph some time, that he could go back and fix things, but instead he's powerless.
It's a reminder that sometimes, even with good intentions, things can spiral out of control.
Yeah. How does Joseph navigate this terrifying new reality of being enslaved in a foreign land?
It's tough to imagine how anyone could come back from an experience like that.
It really is hard to imagine what he must have been going through emotionally, torn away from his family, his home, everything he knows. And now he's facing this completely uncertain future in a totally foreign land.
Yeah, it would be easy to assume that he'd just be crushed, right? Consumed by bitterness and despair. But that's not the Joseph we see in the text.
Not at all. It's remarkable how the story doesn't really dwell on that initial suffering. It's like the narrative shifts gears, focusing instead on how Joseph navigates this new and incredibly challenging situation.
And he doesn't just survive, he seems to thrive.
Exactly. We learn that Joseph was sold to Potiphar, who's an official of Pharaoh, the captain of the guard. So he goes from being a shepherd's son to a slave in this high-ranking official's household. But what's so interesting is that even in this situation, stripped of his freedom and his identity, the text still says that the Lord was with Joseph. He gains Potiphar's favor and is put in charge of everything.
It's almost like he has this innate ability, to rise above his circumstances, to find a way to excel even in the most difficult situations.
Yeah, and that raises an interesting question, doesn't it? How do we explain Joseph's success? Is it just luck? Or is there something more going on? The text seems to suggest it's a combination of both. It acknowledges Joseph's inherent abilities, his intelligence, his work ethic, but it also emphasizes the role of divine providence.
It's like he's being tested and refined through all these trials, like he's being prepared for something greater.
I like that. That's a really insightful way to look at it. Almost like he's being molded by these experiences, his character shaped by the challenges he's facing.
Okay, so he's doing well, proving himself to be capable and trustworthy. But then, of course, the story throws another curveball, right?
Oh, of course. It wouldn't be a good story without a little more drama. The story introduces a new layer of complexity with Potiphar's wife. She takes notice of Joseph, who by this point is described as well-built and handsome, and she tries to seduce him.
Oh boy, here we go again. More trouble. It seems like no matter where Joseph goes, drama just follows.
Yeah, it's definitely a recurring theme in his story. But in this case, it's not Joseph who instigates the conflict. He's the target of these unwanted advances, and he repeatedly rejects her, demonstrating a strong sense of morality and loyalty to his master.
Yeah, he even tells her, how then could I do such a wicked thing and sin against God? Clearly, he's being guided by a strong moral compass, even in a situation where he's so incredibly vulnerable.
Right, and it's important to remember the power dynamics here. He's a slave, she's the wife of his master. Refusing her advances could have had really serious consequences.
Absolutely. It would have been so much easier and probably safer to just go along with it. But he stands his ground.
He does, which really speaks volumes about his character. He's not just surviving, he's a man of integrity, even when faced with temptation and risk.
But as you can imagine, his refusal doesn't exactly go unpunished. Potiphar's wife, enraged by his rejection, falsely accuses him of assault.
It's a classic case, right? Twisted motives, abuse of power. She uses her position to get revenge on Joseph for daring to defy her. Sadly, it's a scenario that still happens all too often, even today.
It's a reminder that sometimes doing the right thing doesn't protect you from the consequences of other people's bad choices.
Unfortunately, that's true. And for Joseph, it ends up costing him. Potiphar believes his wife's lies and throws Joseph into prison.
Ugh, it's like a repeat of what happened with his brothers. Betrayal, false accusations, ending up in prison. How much can one person take?
Right. It's brutal. But even in this dark place, his inner strength shines through.
Because even in prison, we see that same resilience, that same determination to make the best of a bad situation.
Exactly. And if you connect this to the bigger picture, this imprisonment, as unjust as it was, becomes a turning point in his journey. It's in prison, surrounded by darkness and despair, that he discovers a new gift.
Yeah.
The ability to interpret dreams.
You're right. It's like those dreams of his, the ones that caused so much trouble earlier, now become the key to his eventual rise to power. It's really an interesting twist.
It is. It's almost like his earlier experiences, both the good and the bad, have been preparing him for this moment. And his ability to understand and interpret dreams, that becomes his greatest asset.
So while he's in prison, Joseph meets two of Pharaoh's officials, the cupbearer and the baker, who are also in prison. They're both having these troubling dreams. And Joseph, drawing on, I don't know, some kind of divine inspiration, interprets them.
What's interesting is those dreams aren't just random, They actually foreshadow the future. Joseph correctly predicts that the cupbearer will be restored to his position, but the baker will be executed.
Wow. It's like he's tapped into something bigger than himself, something that allows him to see beyond the present. And this is where we start to see Joseph's strategic thinking emerge. He asks the cupbearer, who's about to be released, to remember him, to mention him to Pharaoh.
Yeah, it's this tiny act of hope, like a plea for someone to advocate for him in a system that seems totally rigged against him. And it also reveals a shift in Joseph's approach. He's not just passively enduring his fate anymore. He's actively searching for a way out.
It takes a lot of guts to do that, to reach out and ask for help when you feel completely forgotten and abandoned.
It does. It's a reminder that even in the darkest times, we shouldn't give up hope.
But then there's this agonizing wait. 2 whole years go by before the cupbearer remembers Joseph.
And you imagine the emotional roller coaster? That hope that was ignited, and then the crushing disappointment of being forgotten, and then the sudden, resurgence of possibility when the cupbearer finally does remember to speak to Pharaoh.
Talk about a test of patience. But as we'll see, this delay, this whole period of obscurity, it's all part of a much bigger plan, a plan that's slowly unfolding.
It's like his character is being refined and tested even more in the crucible of adversity.
Well,
preparing him for the incredible role he's about to play.
Okay, so the stage is set. We have this young man unjustly imprisoned, but with this unique gift, and a powerful ruler plagued by dreams he can't understand.
It's the perfect setup for, a truly epic encounter.
It really makes you think about how we often miss the potential that might be hidden in the most unexpected places. So Joseph is brought out of prison, stands before Pharaoh, and listens as Pharaoh describes these 2 dreams.
And those dreams, they're loaded with symbolism.
Oh, yeah.
First dream, Pharaoh sees these 7 healthy cows just devoured by 7 sickly cows. And then in the second dream, these 7 healthy ears of grain are swallowed up by 7 withered ears.
It's powerful imagery. I mean, I'd be a little freaked out too if I were him.
Oh, absolutely.
Especially a powerful ruler like Pharaoh, right? I mean, he must have sensed that these dreams were pointing to something bad, something that threatened his entire kingdom.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, can you imagine the pressure Joseph must have felt standing there in front of Pharaoh?
It's a high-stakes situation, no doubt about it.
Yeah.
But what I find fascinating is how Joseph approaches the task. He doesn't brag or claim to have some kind of, magical power or special insight.
No.
He's very humble about it. He says, "It is not in me. God will give Pharaoh a favorable answer."
That humility is something we see throughout Joseph's story.
Yeah, for sure.
It's like he knows he's just a vessel for something much greater than himself.
It's a good reminder that sometimes the best way to tap into wisdom is to just step aside and let something else, flow through you. And it seems to work for Joseph because he then gives Pharaoh this really clear and, surprisingly coherent interpretation of his dreams.
Yeah, he explains that the 7 good cows and the 7 good ears of grain, those represent 7 years of abundance.
Oh, okay.
And then the 7 sickly cows and the 7 withered ears, those represent 7 years of famine that will follow. So it's not some vague mystical interpretation or anything. It's actually rooted in a practical understanding of natural cycles, how things work.
And I think that's what really impresses Pharaoh. It's not just the interpretation itself, but the advice Joseph gives him. He doesn't just tell Pharaoh what the dreams mean. He gives him a plan of action.
Right. He tells Pharaoh to find a wise and discerning man to oversee the gathering of grain during those good years so they can prepare for the famine that's coming. It's strategic and proactive, showing this level of foresight that no one else seems to have.
Yeah, and Pharaoh sees that, right? He recognizes Joseph's wisdom and insight and makes an incredible decision. He appoints Joseph, this former prisoner, as second in command over all of Egypt. Talk about a turnaround. From prisoner to vizier in like a day.
Yeah. It just shows you how unpredictable fate can be and how important it is to be prepared for those opportunities when they come knocking.
Hmm?
And it also says a lot about Pharaoh, I think,
Yeah.
that he was willing to put aside his own prejudice and recognize talent, even in someone who was once a slave.
It's a good reminder that we should never underestimate anyone, no matter their background or their circumstances. And Joseph, despite everything he's been through, doesn't waste any time. He immediately gets to work traveling all over Egypt, gathering grain during those years of plenty and storing it away so they'll be ready when the famine hits.
It speaks to his work ethic, his organizational skills. He doesn't let the power go to his head. He just focuses on the task at hand.
Which is a good thing because that famine hits hard. Not just Egypt, but the surrounding lands too, including Canaan, where Joseph's family is struggling to survive.
And that sets up this incredible reunion, one that forces the brothers to face what they did, and it tests Joseph's capacity for forgiveness. It's such a powerful moment in the story.
We've gone from this story of betrayal and despair to a story of resilience and unexpected redemption. But there's still that big question, right? Will Joseph, now that he's in this position of power, will he take revenge on his brothers? Or will he choose a different path?
The story of Joseph really invites us to think about how we respond to adversity, how we navigate the complexities of family and forgiveness, how we might ultimately find meaning and purpose even when life throws us those unexpected curveballs. This story still resonates with us thousands of years later because it speaks to what it means to be human.
It's a powerful reminder that even when we face huge challenges, even when we feel lost or forgotten, there's always a chance for transformation and hope. And that's what makes this story so enduring and inspiring. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the story of Joseph. Until next time.
Happy exploring.